Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas have been three of the major powerhouses in the sports apparel industry over the last 50 years. Bailey Howe and I are describing how business analytics are used to track not only their sales, but how these three companies use business analytics to track their own data. So, what is business and data analytics? Business analytics started in the industrial period. In the beginning of the use of railroads, steel, and oil, the companies started growing very quickly and all over the nation. In the U.S., Frederick Taylor introduced the first formalized form of business analytics in the 1800s, according to the History of Evolution of Business Analytics. In the sports apparel field, it's used all over the place, but specifically for Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas, the three industries and the three companies use apps to track their customers' usage, but also track to ensure that the health in their customers is still going smoothly. So looking at the sports apparel industry, just a few facts. It was valued at $78 billion in 2016, and in that same year, footwear apparel went up 10%, while all the other apparel also went up 6%. In that year, sports apparel is used from anywhere from sweatshirts of teams, personalized jerseys, hats, socks, shoes as well. If you look at Nike specifically, you can get Nike shoes, you can get Nike cleats, you can get Nike flip-flops. There's so many different aspects of the sports apparel industry, and that's why it continues to thrive. So looking at Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour. These are three of the big markets in the field, and the companies are worldwide, and they're not just stores, but they're brands. They represent things. They're used by different colleges, such as Lynn. We use Adidas to represent our student athletes. Florida State is sponsored by Nike, and the University of Maryland in Baltimore County, they are sponsored by Under Armour. So these three, they're not just brands that are sold in stores. They're brands that really represent schools and represent different teams, as well as professional leagues as well. So starting off with Nike. Nike emerged from two people, Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman. Phil Knight had to give up his dream of sports, but he still wanted to have an outlet to that field of sports and of athletics. And for Bowerman, he was a part of the Oregon Runners who wanted a lighter and more durable shoe for himself when he worked out and when he practiced. So Nike uses analytics. As mentioned, one of the companies that uses an app, they use the Nike Plus app. It's an app and a website, and what customers do is they update and input information about runs they go on and different workouts they do, and the app is able to be used on a certain watch. It's also able to be used on a phone, an Apple Watch, and other different devices. Nike ends up using the products that the customers produce, and according to the article written by Pedro in 2016, the data was used in focus groups, and it analyzes everyone's use of the app, and it collects sensors so that athletes are able to see which items are more durable for long runs versus short runs versus sprints. And Nike uses the customer satisfaction to say that it is the top sportswear brand. Looking at the chart on the slide, this is Nike's revenue from 2005 to 2017. As you can see, it strictly goes up, starting in 2005 with $13 billion of revenue, and in 2017, it's already tripled that to $34 billion. Just looking at the chart from Statistica.com, just note that $34.350 million equates to $34.35 billion. Looking at our next company, Adidas. Adidas started around the time of World War II in the 1940s. Two brothers, Adi and Rudy Dassler, had a falling out, and Rudy was falsely accused of being a Nazi and working for the SS. And Rudy was convinced that his brother had turned him in, and it was a brother rivalry essentially. And Adi, started Adidas, and Rudy, on the other hand, started the company Puma, which is still successful. And the three-stripe logo that we use still today represented Adi's three sons. Adidas uses a different type of analytic system to collect data. They use a consumer DNA, also known as a cDNA model. Adidas looks for three main ideas when using this model. It's what do the customers expect? What are the success factors in the customers and of the advances? And then lastly, what are the technological advances that they need to meet to fit the needs of their customers? They found that personalization, agility, and speed is on top of the Adidas priorities, and Adidas uses their technology, in small businesses to gather data to show that Adidas is loyal to their customers and Adidas also works. Looking at this chart, it doesn't show their gross revenue like Nike does, but it does show from 2015 to 2016 that every single number in this chart, and this accounts from number of shares to earnings in their year highs and year lows, they've all gone up from 2015 to 2016, showing Adidas is on the right track just like Nike is. Just keep in mind, Adidas is a company that works more out of Europe, so the dollars are in euros. On to the last company, Under Armour. Under Armour was started by a collegiate football player, Kevin Plank. Plank was a University of Maryland football player in '96 and was tired of having to change his sweat-soaked cotton shirts twice and 3 times at practice. From that point on, the football field is a major place where Under Armour is used. And for years, Plank used his grandmother's basement as his warehouse for this company and started making $17,000 just selling random products out of that basement until he advanced. Under Armour uses a similar app to Nike. It's called MyFitnessPal. It is an Under Armour app which allows a person to set their goal weight and allow them to lose weight. The app also tracks food intake, calories, workouts, and also, which is even a different aspect than the Nike app, is connect with friends and see how your friend's workout is doing and challenge them to meet their goals. This keeps people motivated, and the Under Armour app also measures the amount of sleep people can get to look at the effects of an athlete's performance. So if you go on a long run and you're sleeping more, how does that really correlate? Looking at the data from the Under Armour chart, this shows two sides. It shows the revenue and the earnings and the income. So just looking more on the left side, looking at the revenue, we see that Under Armour in 2015 made nearly $4 billion in revenue. It's about 3,900, but just similar to the Nike, it continuously goes up. Looking at the three companies and analyzing the comparing and contrasting of not only what they represent, but more importantly, how they analyze, relating back to the presentation. We looked at Nike and Under Armour. They really analyze with their apps and the modern day technology, and with them, they really allow the customers to see what they're doing and how they are approaching their analyzation, because they are completely open and the customers see the same thing that they do, just personally rather than overall. Adidas, on the other hand, they do go with that CNDA model, which does represent different cells in different aspects, but they do set the guideline essentially for many non-apparel companies as much, but a lot of companies do use the same type of data. And Underwood wrote an article on Adidas, and the scientists at Adidas use this model because it's consisted of reusable and prefabricated components that essentially have a 360 consumer view. So consumers look at the company and the company looks back at the consumers. So to conclude, the sports apparel industry is forever growing, and it's been growing since the early 2000s at a rapid pace since modern day technology has been introduced, as people can also shop online. But the fact that it is more than just a clothing and it's more than just a brand, it's something that represents players, it's something that represents schools, and it's something that represents people. And it's not only used to show off the apparel you're wearing, whether it's footwear or a jersey, but it's also used to track your health, your fitness, and the way you sleep. Adidas, Nike, and Under Armour are one of the top, or 3 of the top 5 companies in the world, and solely in 2015, they made over $43 billion combined. So they're only going up from here, and there are our references.